You'll remember quite recently that the Variety trade report that was released on the 4th of November, it pretty much confirmed the fact that there wasn't going to be a fourth Kelvin film, or at least a film featuring Chris Pine, Zachary Quinto and Zoe Saldana, made by Paramount. This is in the wake of all of the changes that new CEO David Ellison has been making in his brief time at Paramount, the Skydance Corporation. Paramount as Skydance Corporation. The merger, basically. Paramount and Skydance. You know the story at this stage. Well, the big story today is that Deadline has reported that Jonathan Goldstein and John Francis Daly have been hired by Paramount to write and direct a new Star Trek film. This story, my very first reaction straight away, not a surprise that there's a Star Trek film on the way. I'm really not surprised by that. Paramount have made quite a bit of noise about upping their theatrical output now over the next few years. So news of a Star Trek film, completely inevitable in my opinion. When we heard that Star Trek 4, I'm going to say Kelvin Star Trek 4 wasn't happening, to me it was a question of, right, what will it be instead, not if we will get one. There is one little thing. Now, obviously, you're going to have to wait for official sources and for, proper press releases in that respect, but it seems as though their take is going to be unconnected to any existing Star Trek film or television series. You may commence lighting your pitchforks and pyres. Lighting your pitchforks? So I'm feeling quite mixed about this because before I say anything else, I want to say that these guys, they have a pretty good track record. They wrote Spider-Man Homecoming, which I really enjoyed. And they also directed the recent Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves, which I had a great time with in the cinema. I've watched it again since. It's actually a film I really, really enjoyed. Also featuring Chris Pine. So I like that kind of humor. I like that kind of style. I'd say I quite enjoy that. The idea of that kind of style being included in Star Trek, no worries as far as I'm concerned. I'm on board with that. And we know Star Trek can do humor very, very well. Look at Lower Decks. Look at so many, really. Look at some of the stronger episodes of Strange New Worlds. Now, I don't want to dance around it. It's the fact that it's seemingly not connected to any other film or series. The fact that it's not connected to any other film worries me less. We know at this stage that there's not going to be another Kelvin film. And also to connect it to the previous 10 films means, if you're going to make it, a sequel to Nemesis, that itself then would more or less make it, at least within the realm of Lower Decks, Prodigy, Star Trek, Picard. None of which I have a problem with. Obviously, that would be lovely. I would love that. It shows it on the big screen again. But in my heart of hearts, I don't see that happening. And the reason I don't see that happening is because of the lack of Star Trek legacy. I know you might be like, hang on, this news report has nothing about Star Trek legacy, and you're right, it doesn't. But if we look at the overall context of Star Trek over the last couple of years and what we can perhaps assume is coming for the next couple of years, what I don't see now is taking the risk on connecting to those stories. And the reason I say risk is because you know us. We will see this film. There's no question. It's a Star Trek film. Of course we're going to watch it. In a way, we're a safe audience. But in the era of increasing budgets, increasing just costs for everything, and a highly diluted market, I'm just putting my business hat on here. I understand the push to do something fresh and new, something that doesn't require any homework to watch. Now, listen to me carefully. That does not mean I'm sitting here going, brilliant, bin everything that came before, because I would be quite upset if that was the thing. These same sources, and again, now you must obviously say, Deadline has reported, and Deadline's got a pretty good track record, I will say that. But again, they themselves say sources. So I want you to take everything with a pinch of salt for the moment, right? So anything that seems confirmed, it seems like Goldstein and Francis Daly are on board, but yeah, everything else is kind of up in the air. It's kind of in the realm of speculation, but one of these things that's being speculated is the fact that it will feature all new characters. There's another way of reading this. In a way, right, if you look at The Next Generation, with the exception of DeForest Kelley turning up in Encounter at Farpoint, for the most part, The Next Generation was with all new characters. Deep Space Nine, with the exception of Miles O'Brien moving over, for a time, it was all new characters. So if it's as simple as that, it's a Star Trek universe that just features a new ship and new characters. Well, that's just what we've gotten nearly every time that we've got a new Star Trek. Next Generation, DS9, Voyager, Enterprise, Lower Decks, Strange New Worlds. Yes, I know Strange New Worlds itself is kind of a spin-off of The Cage, and you had Spock and everything, but do you see what I mean? Having something feature new characters, having something be fresh, not necessarily laden with having to carry the story of The Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, or even, because we've no idea when it might be set. It could be set around the time of Starfleet Academy. It could be set around the time of Enterprise. We don't know. We know as well that there has been, as far as I know, this Star Trek Origins movie, but connected with Seth Grahame-Smith and Toby Haynes. As far as I know, that's still on a slate. It might not be, but if it is, that was rumoured to be at least connected to a time before Enterprise. This is what this film could have transformed to become, and if it was, you have a pretty clean slate. I know then that we run into the prequel issue of, is it in a prime timeline? Is it in an alternate timeline? How's it going to affect the stories that have already been told? I remember having that worry watching Star Trek 09, but at least they confirmed that it was in an alternate timeline. Right, cool. So everything still happened and we can enjoy a new thing. The stickler in me is that if we are going to enjoy a new take on the final frontier, maybe I would like it to be in its own universe. I am not opposed to the idea of a sort of a blank slate take, as long as it doesn't say nothing mattered before. That now would get my back up. I think it would get a lot of people's back up. But if you're telling me it's in a side universe altogether, happy out. That's no problem. That just means more stories for us all to tell. As it stands, these two filmmakers are in pretty big demand. Dungeons & Dragons did very well at the box office. Spider-Man Homecoming, come on, it's a Disney Marvel. That did pretty well. And their recent film, according to Deadline, called Mayday, starring Ryan Reynolds, who, I don't know, you might have heard of. Apparently that's tested very, very well. That would make them a pretty good set of people to run a new project, if their track record is to be believed. What I would like to see, obviously, as soon as we can, is a little bit of teasing the plot, teasing the setting. I am sure that we are going to see things that we both really like and potentially really don't as time goes on. If they've just been brought on board to helm this project, it's very unlikely we're going to see anything really substantially before 2027, possibly 2028, depending on the size of the project. Because we don't know, are they going to go for a slightly smaller sci-fi Star Trek project where it's kind of less gamble, less pressure, I guess? Or do they go for, no, let's go whopper, big budget, a bit like the motion picture was, and certainly like Trek 09 was, both of which saw returns. Motion picture's budget ended up kind of eating into its returns, but it actually did very well at the box office, and Trek 09 did very well at the box office. But Star Trek is not a franchise that needs to be a multi-million dollar franchise, or certainly budgets, to do well. You know what I mean? We know this. Some of the television series are among the best that we've seen. They've done amazing things on TV now. Episodes cost the same that small indie films cost in the 80s. You know what I mean? There's a lot that you can do today that is quite different from back then. This is going to be in the world of wild speculation for quite some time to come because, as I say, this is two people have been approached to do a job. That's pretty much what Deadline has reported today. That could mean anything. Who knows? A year could go by before we hear anything else. Although, with the speed that Ellison's Paramount has been releasing bits of news and teasing things, I think that we are more likely to see more information sooner than perhaps would normally be the case. Whatever else is going on at Paramount, they clearly are trying to establish themselves as one of the major names in the business again. Paramount is not a young company, but it had slipped a little bit in recent years in terms of its standing. Ellison, for one, seems to be doing his absolute damnedest to push that back up again, a lot of which has not been received very, very well. We've covered this in several videos at this point. Hi, I'm Duncan Rillick, no relation, and I collect relics from before the burn. Thanks to a temporal wormhole, I now have an unlimited supply of TrekCulture t-shirts, and I'm selling them to you! You could be wearing this stylish down and up t-shirt. Or, how about this fish watching design? Bright yellow on black, the colors I'd use in thumbnails, I tell you that for nothing. I plan to take these designs and transfer them via quantum duplication onto hats, mugs, and posters. So look out for those. Ah! Treat this unlimited supply as a limited time deal. Get your t-shirt quick. Who's your daddy? It remains to be seen what this film will look like if and when it arrives in theaters. As you know, as we get news, we will bring it to you. I want to thank everyone who has linked this Deadline article to me. I want to thank everyone who is watching this video, and I want to thank you all for your continued support of this channel in this very strange, uncertain time for Star Trek. Until I see you again, make sure that you live long and prosper, my friends. I will talk to you soon. Thanks very much.